Nicholas starts giving away his money, helping people. Here is one of the more well-known stories. When the first of his 3 daughters reaches an age where she would typically be married, a man who struggled just to feed his family is too poor to provide the usual dowry required at that time for women to marry. And my feelings about that are a whole different sermon. The man, unable to provide for his children, was afraid he was going to have to sell his oldest daughter into slavery. Question his choices, but, once again. So the story spread around their small town. One morning, the family woke up and a bag of gold was on the floor in front of the fireplace. Delighted, the father was able to provide his oldest daughter with a wedding. A couple of years later, when his middle daughter was old enough to marry, the family woke up one morning and there was a bag of gold inside a stocking that had been hung from the fireplace to dry. For those of you, what was really interesting is for those of you who have a tradition of putting an orange or a tangerine inside a stocking, this is said to be the origin of that tradition. The fruits are golden and represent the gold inside the stocking. I had no idea. Determined to find out who was his family's benefactor, when the youngest daughter was old enough to marry, the father stayed up, waiting for a visitor to leave behind a bag of gold. He managed to catch St. Nicholas. Now, St. Nicholas begged him not to tell anyone what he had done. He wanted his generosity to be a secret, and perhaps he didn't want people to know he was handing out sacks of gold. But information like this is hard to keep secret, and it soon got out. Not long after, any time anyone received a surprise present or some sort of unexpected generosity, Nicholas was suspected. It is these stories and more that led him to being named the patron saint of children, sailors, and several other groups by the Roman Catholic Church. It's this kind of generosity I want my children to discover. The hidden offerings of love and hope. The factual accuracy of these stories around St. Nicholas remain a mystery, even as the stories and legends have shifted as they encounter various cultures and countries. As each parent and family decide what and how to tell their children about Santa, the children are also faced every day with forces and people that work to destroy their belief in mystery of all kinds. When children are learning about the world, they are absorbing all of the information they encounter and trying to incorporate it into their understanding. But they don't make strong distinctions as we make as adults between real and not real, concrete and abstract, work and play. I sometimes wonder if those who seek to destroy children's beliefs in mystery are jealous of the ease children can have with the world and miss something of their own ability to fully delight in all its possibilities. How many of you are familiar with Yes, Virginia, There is a Santa Claus, the letter from the late 1800s? Virginia introduced me to it, so you can blame her for the rest of the sermon. It addresses exactly what we are looking at today. This letter appeared in the New York Sun on September 21st, 1897. A young girl, Virginia O'Hanlon, wrote a letter to the newspaper. The letter was given to one of the editors, Francis Church, who had been a war correspondent during the Civil War. Known to be an atheist and committed to rational thinking and truth, he was a little reluctant to respond to this letter, but decided to. Here is what was published in the New York Sun. Dear editor, I am 8 years old. Some of my little friends say there is no Santa Claus. Papa says, if you see it in the sun, it's so. Such trust in journalism. Please tell me the truth. Is there a Santa Claus? Virginia O'Hanlon, 115 West 95th Street. The response. Virginia, your little friends are wrong. They have been affected by the skepticism of a skeptical age. They do not believe except they see. They think that nothing can be which is not comprehensible by their minds. All minds, Virginia, whether they be men or children, are little. In this great universe of ours, man is a mere insect, an ant in his intellect as compared with the boundless world around him, as measured by the intelligence capable of grasping the whole of truth and knowledge. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. He exists as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist, and you know that they abound and give to your life its highest beauty and joy. Alas, how dreary would the world be if there were no Santa Claus? It would be as dreary as if there were no Virginias. There would be no childlike faith then, no poetry, no romance to make tolerable this existence. We should have no enjoyment except in sense and sight. The external light with which childhood fills the world would be extinguished. Not believe in Santa Claus? You might as well not believe in fairies. You might get your papa to hire men to watch in all the chimneys on Christmas Eve to catch Santa Claus, but even if you did not see Santa Claus coming down, what would that prove? Nobody sees Santa Claus. But that is no sign that there is no Santa Claus. The most real things in the world are those that neither children nor men can see. Did you ever see fairies dancing on the lawn? Of course not. But that's no proof that they're not there. Nobody can conceive of or imagine all the wonders that are unseen and unseeable in the world. You tear apart the baby's rattle and see what makes the noise inside, but there is a veil covering the unseen world, which not the strongest man, nor even the united strength of all the strongest men that ever lived could tear apart. Only faith, poetry, love, romance can push aside that curtain and view and picture the supernal beauty and glory beyond. Is it all real? Ah, Virginia, in all this world, there is nothing else real and abiding. No Santa Claus. Thank God, he lives forever. 1,000 years from now, Virginia, nay, 10 times 10,000 years from now, he will continue to make glad the heart of childhood. Francis Church's response has affected many, making "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus" a well-known statement that people routinely recite even today over 100 years later. Just ask my wife, Virginia. Church's letter offers us answers as we consider many of the mysteries in our lives. The letter was written when this building here in Clark Lake was about 40 years old. And yet it still starts by pointing out that Virginia's friends are affected by skepticism in a skeptical age. That resonates with me today. I don't know about you. Francis Church goes on to challenge Virginia and the rest of us to consider that there are things in the world we cannot understand. There is a wonder and mystery that is just beyond our ability to comprehend. This can be hard for Unitarian Universalists. We tend to lean hard towards rationality, sometimes to the exclusion of mystery and wonder. It serves us to remember that our principles and sources call us to consider what is beyond ourselves. Unitarian Universalism has 7 principles and 6 sources. The 7 principles offer us a guide for our vision of the world, for what we want to work to create here and how we wish to be. And the 6 sources tell us where our 7 principles are drawn from and where we might look for guidance and how to live them out. Our first source is a direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. The first source of our tradition calls us to mystery and wonder, affirmed in all cultures. So in his letter, Francis Church goes on, "Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. He exists as certainly as love and generosity and devotion exist, and you know that they abound and give to your life its highest beauty and joy. Alas, how dreary the world would be if there were no Santa Claus. It would be as dreary as if there were no Virginias. There would be no childlike faith then, no poetry, no romance to make tolerable this existence." I love this paragraph. And not just because the world would be dreary if there were no Virginias. No, I love this paragraph because in any Unitarian Universalist congregation, and indeed here in our Universalist Unitarian Church, we find people with a variety of understandings of the world. Some of us believe in God or the spirit of love, in some sort of higher being or force that exists directly beyond the directly observable and measurable properties of the material world. Others believe there is no such entity. And of course, if we are to be truly honest, in our diverse UU congregations, thoughts about God rarely fit into the boxes of theist and atheist. We have many different ways of grappling with this big question or that one, and many different words for describing where we are with it at this very moment. Yet we understand the power and presence of love, generosity, and devotion. Can we truly grasp the reality of such intangible, untouchable concepts without the stories, historical and legendary, that help shape them for us? Stories offer us a world of mystery and wonder. They open up the possibility of magic, so extensive that there might be a base of elves at the North Pole led by someone who can cover the entire world with gifts in a single night. Pretty sure there's some timey-wimey things going on there. A sense of mystery and wonder is necessary for us all. Without it, we wouldn't have reached for the moon, as we discussed last week. Scientists wouldn't reach for the possibility of a new discovery. Teachers need a sense of mystery and possibility to try again to teach that challenging concept in a new way. Preachers, too. Without the power of love and mystery, we would find it difficult to reach for hope. Francis Church reinforces this line of thinking when he says a little later in the letter, "The most real things in the world are those that neither children nor men can see." I find this to be the most compelling line in the entire letter. Do you think it's true? The most real things in the world are those that neither children nor men can see? Is it possible that one of the mysteries offered to us by Santa Claus is that there may be a difference between truth and fact? A difference that children have better access to than we do? Is it possible that sometimes truth may be accessible only through, as Church mentions, faith, poetry, love, and romance? We know there are things about the world that we cannot directly measure or use logical argument to prove. There is mystery and truth that lies outside of our modern understanding of historical and scientific fact. And honoring this does not negate the value of fact. As Church says, nobody can conceive or imagine all of the wonders there are unseen and unseeable in this world. Our fourth principle, as you use, calls us to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This includes an invitation for us to look for that, to search for what is true, even that might be beyond our factual experience of the world. To understand the transforming power of love, of generosity, the power that faith might have in whatever way you define it. It is the stories, legends, and myths we share that point us to these deep truths. There are truths that I find in Doctor Who that I may not experience directly in my own life. And for you, perhaps you have found truth in the Bible or Anne of Green Gables or another favorite book or legend or television show. Is there beauty and glory beyond what we can understand? To quote Church, "Ah, Virginia, in all this world there is nothing else real and abiding." My beloved spiritual companions, we want our children to believe in mystery, in the possibility of something beyond what can be explained by our limited human understanding of the world. We want it not just because it gives our children access to the power of love, of faith, of generosity, and of hope, but because then they can teach us to access it as well. Yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus. May it be so. Amen.